Hello, these are my hands. I'm Bay Mudd, and I've got something very special on the desk. The brand new Woovebox Pro 2.0, released today. This is a very cool update to an already intriguing tiny box, and while this won't be a comprehensive tutorial, we'll do a brief overview of the Woovebox in general, what's new, some examples of my favorite features, and my initial impressions as a new Woovebox user. Full disclosure, I was looking at buying a secondhand Woovebox in Canada a few months ago, but then Evo, the creator of the Woovebox, reached out about his plans for the 2.0 firmware and offered to send me this new Pro model. No money or contracts, just the usual, if I like it, I'll use it kind of deal. Turns out I like it quite a bit, but keep that bias in mind as you form your own conclusion. If you haven't already heard of the Woovebox, it's made in Australia and was originally released a few years ago, garnering a small but passionate and growing user base. I recall hearing about it a while back, but not digging in much at the time, though my never-ending search for the ideal travel companion eventually brought me back. I do recall a few folks unfairly dismissing it as a sort of niche pocket operator, but we'll see why the comparison is largely unfounded when you get past the similarity of the buttons. The original Woovebox was already quite feature-rich for its size and price, boasting 16 songs, each with 16 tracks and 16 separate patterns, along with a comprehensive song mode, deep synth engine, and sampler, among other things, placing it kind of as a comparator to, say, like the OPZ, for example. The 2.0 update, which is compatible with the original units if you already own one, also ushers in new hardware revisions by way of the SE and Pro models, which both feature an improved ABS case, and the MIDI connection is now switchable between out and in. The original units only had MIDI out. This one is a Pro model, which features a slightly larger battery and comes with extra breakout cables, namely a Type A MIDI dongle, an audio splitter, an audio/sync out cable. It's got this handy microphone you can plug directly in, and then they both come with this great travel case, and there's a sticker sheet that you can use with the new MIDI expander mode, which we won't really touch on in this video, but other people are going to, I think. The SE model is priced at $249 while the Pro is priced at $289 from Woovebox directly. And I'm not really sure I can think of anything that hits this feature set we're about to get into at that price point, so let me know if you have any ideas. In terms of firmware, the 2.0 update is pretty big and brings some fun new features like skip-back resampling, DJ effects with looping buffers, the aforementioned MIDI expander mode, a second sample bank for a total of 2 minutes and 4 seconds of sample time, and so much more. I'll link to the documentation in the description, as there are more improvements than I could possibly cover in one video. As with anything, there is a learning curve, but once you crack the code, it's really up to you in terms of how deep you want to go. At its simplest, the Woovebox is a super fun travel fidget, allowing for quick randomized presets and patterns that are then infinitely tweakable. Seriously, I've lost hours just making patterns and tweaking parameters in fun ways. That said, that simple description is a bit of a disservice to how powerful this tiny box really is, but we'll start there just so we can kind of get the lay of the land. To start, let's select a song. We'll press play and then press one of these buttons here to select our song. We'll stay on number 6 because I know it's empty. From here, we can use the context menu to initialize our song in a few ways. To do that, we'll hold right and then press the value encoder and page through our context menu options. We're looking for init here. So we have random, basic, or MIDI. We don't have anything plugged into MIDI, so we're just looking at random or basic. And in this case, random randomizes the preset selection for our sounds, whereas basic sets everything, I think, to just a sine wave. So you start from absolute scratch. But let's use random for fun. We'll hold the value encoder until it says OK. Now we're good. All our presets have been randomized. From here, we can select one of the 16 tracks. In this case, we'll start with a kick. So press the value encoder and button 5/K to get to the kick track. And you can see we're at kick. We're already on the sequencer page. We can scroll around to show you other options, but we need to be on the sequencer page here. So in the kick track, we're on the sequencer page. Now we once again go to the context menu and we'll randomize our pattern for now, just to get started. So hold the right button again, press the value encoder until we see random. So there we have random pattern, press OK. And now when I play, we can now hear the random kick preset that was chosen when we randomized song 6 and this random kick pattern. And you can turn it up by holding play and turning the value here, but it's going to get loud as I talk, so we'll leave it at 75 for now. From here, we'll do the same thing to a couple other tracks so that we can involve, say, a snare and a bass and a lead and start somewhere. But first, I'd like to slow this down. So let's press Value and go to Song again. In the global song page, the first button is our tempo. So let's turn that down. Let's go to 96. That feels vibey. I won't do anything about swing and all that stuff right now. We'll just start there. Now I'd like to randomize a snare track. So from here, Value, Snare, which is button 6. And now our context menu again, right/value, random pattern, hold the value till it says OK, let go. Now we have a snare and a kick. Let's see how they sound together. Now, I don't like that snare in this context, so let's scroll all the way to the patch selection here, hold the snare button, and now in 2.0, we can just scroll through various snares. So let's see. That's a 909. That's kind of fun, whatever's happening there. Let's stay in the random vibe with that. So now we have our random snare. You can edit your sequence, obviously. So in this case, maybe I don't need a couple of those middle ones. Let's see what our kick sequence looked like again. Pretty simple. Yeah, let's get rid of a couple of these middle snares. Play it together. Okay, cool. Let's do the same with the bass. So value and then button 2 for bass. Context menu again, right and value, random pattern, hold until it says OK. Let's see what this sounds like. Oh, there's a bunch of delay on that bass. Maybe we should turn some of that off. So I'll scroll over to the global. We're in our bass track, global page. The delay is down here. So we'll turn that delay down. So we don't need that much delay on here. How does that sound? Okay, that's kind of fun. Let's add a lead. Same thing, value +3. Now, we will randomize just like we did before. Let's see what this sounds like. That kind of works in the context of what we're trying to do. So this is now our little random song starter. Obviously, you can go much deeper and be very selective and intentional about each note and sound choice, the song key, all kinds of things. But this is a quick example of what I call a sort of fidget workflow. Like if you're decompressing after a long day or just have a few minutes to kill on a train, it's very fun just to do this sort of thing. Moreover, starting this way helped me unlock the Pages interface that you saw me scrolling through there a little bit, because it's very powerful. And once you've kind of cracked that nut a little bit, you really know a lot more about how you can learn to deep dive and start making full, completely original tracks on the Woovebox. Suffice it to say, sound design and sequencing options go very deep on this little box, so we won't cover them here. You have pages full of parameters dedicated to things like the two oscillators, oscillator 1, oscillator 2, amplitude, filter, pitch, pan, dynamics, and then your preset page, which lets you start from one of over 170 factory presets to use as a starting point. Though only your edits to the active patch on each track are saved with the song. There are no user preset slots, so to speak, on the Woovebox, which I consider a bit of a bummer, but I've learned to live with it as you kind of create your own bespoke sounds for each song, which seems to be the intent of the creator. The sampler has also been overhauled for the 2.0 update and now includes a second sample bank, adding an extra 1 minute and 2 seconds, so a total of 2 minutes and 4 seconds between the two banks, which you can select via the global page in Song View. So value and song, we're already on the global page for song 6. Button 14 or A6 is sample bank. And when you let go, it gives you your sound design that you've done. So sample bank. If I hold the button, it will show a longer description on the two 7-segment screens. So you'll see sample bank 1, but if I hold it, sample bank. So you kind of get to learn what the abbreviations are a little more easily. In this case, you can choose load sample bank 2 or load sample bank 1. But keep in mind, you can only use one of the two banks in a given song. Another big update to the sampler, and one of my favorite features so far, is the addition of skip back resampling. Basically, much like your phone or your smart speaker or your thermostat or probably your fridge, the Woovebox is now always recording. It's not that sinister though in this case. It's basically a constantly looping 11.8 second buffer that can be accessed anytime via the sampler. For example, let's play that random song we started earlier. I'll just go back to the kick track and press play. Kind of a 80s chill wave kind of vibe happening so far. Okay, so now we'll open the sampler by pressing value and the sampler button, or number 14. And here, much like our song, we press play and then one of these buttons to select our sample slot that we'd like to use. So in this case, I have stuff in 5 and 1, but nothing in 2, so we'll use 2. Now, once again, we go to the context menu. In every page, there is often a context menu with different options in it that pertain to that particular feature. So here, hold right, press the value encoder, and page through the options. We just saw skip back, but I skipped over it. So here's skip back. Now, when I press and hold the value encoder, it's going to record that sampled buffer into slot 1 or slice 1 of our kit here. There you go. And now when I press this, hold this button, that's our sequence that has been resampled via the skip back resampling. Very seamless and easy to do. And now we can treat it like any other sample and adjust things like the start and end points, lower the pitch, edit the playback mode, etc. So hold your slice to access a menu. You see, start course. We can adjust the start point. And then press the value encoder to page through. We have start fine if we want to get fine tune it. End course, we can drop it right back if we don't want to use up a lot of sample slot time. End fine. We have one shot mode. We have one shot reverse. That's kind of cool. Let's leave it on one shot forward for now. Warp we won't get into today, but that's pretty powerful as well. And then you can pitch it down or up as well. So there we go. We've adjusted that resample a little bit. We can also copy and paste this slice to other available slots in the kit and do different edits, creating independently accessible versions without taking up more of our precious sample time. To do that, context menu once again, right plus value, clone slice was the first one that came up. So let's hold that. It's going to clone it to the next available slot. We can actually just do it again. Now it's in 2 and 3. And now we can do different edits if we want. So we can adjust our start point. Let's adjust. I did like that reverse mode. Yeah, okay, let's do that. And then in this one, let's pitch it down. So we'll hold this, page through to tune. Let's drop it down. That's kind of fun. Okay, now we have something to work with that started all from our randomized selection. So you don't actually have to do anything with those random bits and sequences that we chose earlier. I've simply resampled them and am now going to make them fodder for a sliced up kit that we're going to use for future tests. So right now we're in the sampler, but we need to get this new kit into one of the tracks of our song. So to do that, we will copy the kit into a track. So context menu again, hold right, we'll page through. Patch kit, hold that. Okay, now select one of our sample tracks here. Let's do button 9, so value and 9. And now that's loading and it says we have 35.65 seconds left in this sample bank because I've used it for some other things already. But while it loads, it tells you kind of how much room you have left if you wanted to make some adjustments. For what it's worth, I think we used about 3 seconds there. Okay, now we are in our patch page of track 9. Context menu again, right and value. Paste patch is the first one that comes up because it's trying to be convenient for us to go to paste a kit from the sampler. So hold value, okay. Now if we go to our sequencer page, those are our samples we just sliced up. And now what we can do is add some hits on this sequence. We won't do it randomly this time because now we're trying to be a bit more intentional. So what we'll do, I'll select the first one here. Whichever slice I have last selected will be whatever I put down when I'm holding right. So 1, hold right, we'll put it there and there. Let's do 2. Let's see, do 2 there and maybe there. And 3. Let's see, 3 there, and let's try there. Oh, and we can solo this as well. So hold value and our track number, which is 9. Solo on, so it'll only play this beat. Great, okay, I'm into that so far. We can do a lot more with this sequencer and pattern pages if we wanted to, but for this demo, let's keep it simple, but I will scroll over a couple pages to add some distortion, which is always fun for this type of beat, or not even really a beat, more like a sample. But here we have distortion is off. Let's be very judicious with it. Just scrolled up to 2. Now press the value encoder and get taken right back to your sequencer page. Let's see how that sounds. That's already kind of gritty and fun. So let's leave that now. So remember, that started from our randomized selection of songs or of sounds and patterns. And then now we've been a lot more intentional with what we've done with the skip back resampling to then sequence little slices of that resample into our own new melody. This gives us some excellent fodder to show off the new DJ effects pages. So let's go back to song mode. So value and song. Song 6 global page is where we are now. There's a lot of power in these DJ effects pages for things like sonic manipulation, risers, drops, and transitions. And just in case, a little backstory on songs on the Woovebox, in case you're new to this, like I was pretty recently. Songs on the Woovebox are made up of fragments, which select the particular tracks and patterns you'd like to play in what order, among other things. So first we have to set up a fragment. So in song mode, scroll over until we see fragment 1. We only have one fragment. They're all going to say, you can have as many as you want, but they're all going to say end at the moment because we haven't given them a length or any kind of information. So first we're going to hold right and turn the value encoder. And now we're adding steps. But if we keep scrolling, we can make fragment 1 2 bars, for example. So now we have a 2-bar fragment, but there is no content because we haven't added a track or any patterns to our fragment. To do that, we only really want that beat we just created or that sample we just created. So press right and number 9, and now there we go. So we have a fragment that plays for 2 bars of that pattern we just created with our slices, which gives us a starting point for DJ effects. So now that we've got our fragment set up, we can hold the value encoder again and press song one more time to switch from fragment mode to DJ. There you go, DJ 1. Each fragment has its own page of DJ effects. So if we had fragment 2, which we will eventually, we can scroll over, it would be DJ 2, and so on. And these include things like parameters to fade in noise or a drone, a DJ style filter, a gate effect, as well as a very clever implementation of 2 audio looper kind of buffers. The DJ effects page really deserves its own video, so we won't cover it all here, but I'll give you a quick example to give you an idea of the potential. Let's have our first fragment fade in some noise. So on the DJ page, button 3 is noise volume start. And that's at 0 now, which means there will be no noise at the start of the fragment, which is fine. That's what we want. So button 4 is noise volume end. And right now that's at 0. We want to max that out. The Woovebox gives you a convenient way to page through some standard kind of values. And that's just by holding the button you'd like to affect and then pressing the value encoder, and it will go through minimum, middle, and maximum. So for example, with noise, there's medium, maximum, minimum, we'll go max. So 127. We've maxed out the noise at the end of the fragment now. So now when I press play, the fragment noise will fade up as our pattern plays. And that's not the most musical of examples that I could use here, but hopefully you can see how this could be useful for things like drops and transitions and stuff, as you could copy that fragment to have just your standard sample without the noise and lead into another part or whatever you want, bring in a beat under that if you wanted to. So let me just do a couple other things to show you a bit more potential here. What we'll do now is the same thing with the filter. There's a DJ style filter on buttons 7 and 8. So we've got our filter start is off, but let's have it start all the way on low pass. So the low pass filter, it'll be basically like almost like a fade in. And then at the end of the fragment, we want the high pass to be all the way open as well. So, or all the way closed, I guess. So now when we play, our noise will come up, but our filter will sweep as well. And you can also be more subtle with your values there. If you don't want maximum noise or maximum high pass or whatever, you can do a lot of different things in there. But hopefully you can see what you could do here. Now, for example, if I press value and song, we're back to fragment 1. If I scroll over 1, we've got fragment 2, which is the end. But if we hold right, we can make this a couple bars as well if we want. Add our track 9 again. Now, I could have used the context menu to copy this pattern, but I didn't want to copy the DJ effects we've added because I want this to be clean for this example. So now if I go back to fragment 1 and press play, so there you go. In that example, we had our noise and our filter sweep, and then it went to a standard clean version of our little sample there. So hopefully you can see the potential, as I keep saying. Of course, none of this even speaks to the available audio buffers in the DJ effects pages, which are super useful and very fun in terms of manipulating or playing back audio in your song. But we'll save that for another time, as it really deserves its own video. I've only really scratched the surface of the Woovebox in general, let alone the massive 2.0 update. Honestly, I'm still discovering new features or options, and I don't expect that to end anytime soon. So expect more videos as I dive deeper, as I've already got some fun, weird ideas. Okay, so I've been gushing about this thing for a while now, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. So let's do a quick short list of some quibbles I've kind of come up with as I've been learning how to use it that you might want to be aware of. So the first one is the Woovebox relies heavily on Bluetooth MIDI to do things like update firmware, load samples, or backup presets, etc. And personally, I had a bunch of issues trying to get that to work on my Android phone or my Windows laptop. So keep that in mind. But the 2.0 SE and Pro versions with their switchable MIDI in connection allow you to do that via a MIDI cable and interface instead if you have issues with the Bluetooth MIDI. USB is for power only, so just keep that in mind as well. That said, with some troubleshooting, I did get it all working fine, and there are a lot of pages of documentation and other folks who are very helpful, and there's a good Discord as well you could join. I've already mentioned the lack of user preset slots, which did throw me for a loop at first, but I've largely gotten over that, and I'm learning to embrace the vision of bespoke patches per song, or at least finding and manipulating one of the over 170 factory presets beyond recognition for what the song I'm working on needs at the time. It's just something I thought was worth mentioning because I never saw it in any prior videos or anything like that. So you might want to know that going in, so you're not expecting, to save 200 of your own presets to use later. It's not that kind of vibe. And I have mentioned it is very deep, and there are so many options in terms of sound design or conditional sequencing and triggering and things like that. And the endless options and depth is made a bit trickier by the primitive 7-segment displays, as it means I'm constantly looking up what some of the many abbreviations mean. But much like the 7-segment display on my trusty Deluge, more on that next week, I imagine it just takes time to get familiar with most of the important parameters, and then I'll stop having to look them up as much. But it's worth knowing that there is a learning curve, and the displays do mean you have to put in a bit more effort, but it is worth it. Speaking of, one thing that's been super helpful as I get to know this super powerful little device is the updated Wooveconnect site, which is usually how you would do things like update firmware, backup songs or presets, and load pre-recorded samples. However, as of the 2.0 update, you can also use it as a sort of living glossary or manual, as long pressing buttons will bring up the documentation for that particular feature, which has been invaluable as I get used to the dual 7-segment displays. I'll give you an example. If I go back to our sample kit and go to the global page, for example, I don't remember what some of these parameters are. So if I hold, say, this one, that's transpose semi, but you can see with what I put on the overlay of the screen here, that is, the transpose, and that documentation for what that parameter does comes up. Again, if I hold this one, this is the algorithm. So the synthesis algorithm, this is where you choose FM or subtractive or sample or whatever, certain things like that. So you can see how useful this page is in context of learning the device in conjunction with the documentation on the site, for example. It's very comprehensive, but I did find I had to use a lot of searching. But here, if you have the device open and you're connected to Wooveconnect, anything you might want to know, you can kind of just long press, okay, that is the amplitude envelope generator depth for oscillator 1. Okay, great. I can read about that here if I'm stuck on remembering what some of these abbreviations are. Super handy and helpful. I wish more devices had something like Wooveconnect. By and large, I think you can tell I've been super happy in my Woovebox journey so far, and keep having these like eureka moments as I unlock another new feature or learn a really fun new trick I didn't realize before. I went into this thinking it would just be an interesting little travel companion, as it makes a great alternative to the discontinued OPZ, for example. But the more I learn, the more I can see it being more of a tiny centerpiece to a bigger setup. It's not going to replace my Deluge anytime soon, but I do have some fun ideas on how I could use them together, so stay tuned. Can you think of something else in this price range that packs this much of a punch? Let me know in the comments. Alternatively, if you've got any Woovebox questions or want to see any particular features covered, let me know that as well, as I've got some more deep dives planned. Hopefully, this brief overview of the Woovebox and the 2.0 firmware has been helpful at the very least, and much more to come soon.